Welcome and anchor down. Zach and Jimmy are back after almost a 1 month break from doing our podcasts together. This is the 17th episode. We are doing this as a break from studying for finals, last one before winter break, and we're going to talk about Vandy basketball.
Before fully diving into basketball, though, I want to mention that Zeek, our Zeek from JT and Zeek, is becoming famous. ESPN College Basketball caught this video of us at the Dayton game and is calling your fist pump better than Tiger Woods's. That's a big statement. We have over 70,000 Vine views so far. Here's the video right there. It is. There's a fist pump. Oh, there's the second one. Both of us wearing black Vanderbilt shirts. JT and Zeek becoming famous. Gotta love that.
Yeah, the past two games were tough to watch, we'll put it that way. Obviously, we've been very optimistic about this team. They've looked great at times. Last two games, we just haven't played our own game. Tough to watch.
Yeah, as Wade said in the press conference after the Dayton game, a top 25 team should never lose twice in a row. I thought we had this one locked up. At the end of the first half, when we were up like 16 points, we were talking, saying, we'll be able to withstand Luke Cornett's absence. Our team is going to be fine going forward, might be able to go into conference play with no more losses. But it put a little bit more doubt in our minds. Dayton's a good team. They're not a great team. I think that they could end up ranked after this week, but rankings don't mean much at this time of the year.
Yeah, the score was either 38-22. It may have even been 40-22. I'm not positive, but the end of the first half really set the tone. Dayton came back. It was either like a 6 or 8 point game at the half, and then the beginning of the second half, we only scored 4 points in the first 6 minutes. Dayton really took over. That can't happen. The most important part of the game is the beginning of the second half, and that's when we really did not execute. As for some stats, we really, in the past two games, have struggled rebounding. It's been so apparent. Just watching it is painful. You see all of these offensive rebounds going to the other team. Against Dayton, we allowed 15 offensive rebounds. We only had 24 defensive rebounds ourselves. That's about like 40% of the shots that Dayton missed, they ended up getting rebounds on.
Yeah, those should not be 50-50 balls. The team on defense should get almost all of the rebounds, especially when you have the size that we do. Baylor was a big team inside. Rico Gathers, one of the best rebounders in the country. There's no excuse against Dayton. Dayton was not a great rebounding team coming in. And if you look at the box score even more, you keep finding it more and more troubling. You see that their guards each had 4 or 5 rebounds, a lot of them offensive. It's really rebounding from everybody. You can't just blame it on Damian or Henderson for this one.
Yeah, if I were to summarize this game by one stat, it would be the number of shots taken by both teams. Dayton had 9 more shots. That makes the difference. 9 more shots. You hit 4 of those. That's 8, 9 points. That's the entire difference right there. You can't allow the other team to take that many more shots than you. And that stat was even more staggering in the Baylor game. In the Baylor game, Baylor had 18 more shots than we had. 18. We had a higher field goal percentage, higher three-point percentage, higher free throw percentage, and we still lost because of all of the turnovers and all of the offensive rebounds.
Yeah, giving up extra possessions against a good team just kills you. See, we lost by 2 points after outshooting them in every category, like Jimmy just said. It just makes it really frustrating to watch, too. In the Dayton game, one positive takeaway I have, Damian had a very good game. He looked like vintage Damian when he was playing well from last year, especially early in the game. He was 7 of 12 from the field, 4 of 8 from the line, but as a team, we shot 76% from the line, which is hard to complain about.
Yeah, Damian had a good game. Before the game, I remember telling you he was my player of the game.
We
needed him to step up, and he definitely did, especially offensively. His footwork looked great. His shots were falling. One thing, though, and we've already talked about it a lot, was rebounding. I still struggle watching him not box out.
He jumps for the ball.
Yeah, he just needs to position himself better. He's 7 feet tall. He's bigger than everyone else on the court. Just get good positioning. You'll get the rebounds.
I love Damian. We like seeing him out there. You can't argue. We need Damian on the floor almost the whole game to win. Samir got a couple minutes in this game with Cornett's absence. Maybe he'll get more. He looks like the game is a little bit too fast for him at this point, but he's such a fundamental player. He finds his guy. He boxes out. I want to see Samir get more minutes.
I completely agree with that. As I said in the season preview, I thought he'd be our best rebounder. Obviously, he's not getting the minutes to prove that, but I still do believe if we put him on the court, he will help us with rebounding. And considering that's our biggest struggle right now, I think he should be on the court more. I do like what I've seen from Henderson, though. I mean, going into the season, I did not expect to see him this much. He's really satisfied. Like, I don't know, everything I'd expect from the guy. Been pretty good defensively. A lot of good support defense on his part. He had that nice 3 a couple games ago. I mean...
Oh, he's definitely been a plus as Henderson being our backup center. I wasn't expecting it either. He's got a pretty polished game. If he made that 3 in the Dayton game, the place would have absolutely exploded. I guess one more comment I have when it comes to roster is I think Joe Toye should be getting starter minutes unless it's a very close game at this point. In the games we have going forward, like against Wofford, get this guy as much time as you can on the floor. He's the only guy besides Wade who could truly say can create for himself. He's so quick to the basket. His first step is so good. If we get him more experience playing defense, more experience in the offense, he could be one of our key guys down the stretch. It could be like Vanderbilt. We're playing Vanderbilt. We have to watch out for Baldwin, Jones, Toye. Could see that happening.
I like that. Obviously, that's going to be something we see more looking forward, maybe a year or 2 down the road. But, yeah, from what we've seen from Toye, he's someone that can really cut to the rim. I mean, you give him the ball on the three-point line, he'll be at the rim in 1 second with some acrobatic layup. A few of them haven't gone his way. They'll roll like right outside of the rim or something, but they always look like they're going in. It always looks good. He's our most athletic player, and, I mean, that's something we need on the court more often, I'd say.
Oh, definitely. I feel like he should be getting some of the minutes that Kressler's getting, too. I want to see Fisher Davis playing the 2, Toye coming in as the backup 3. Kressler's been kind of, I think maybe it's from not playing a year, maybe he's a little overwhelmed by the atmospheres. He just hasn't been overly impressive, and Toye has a much, much higher ceiling than him. I want to see Toye taking some of his minutes, seeing what he could do with it.
Toye has a really high upside, obviously, but I do think Kressler has been, at least in some games, he's really impressed me. I mean, you can tell he's a baller. He's one of the only guys also that, like, when he goes for rebounds, he really grabs the ball. He can shoot the 3. He's, other than Riley LaChance, he's our best, like, I don't know, natural scorer. I don't know exactly how to say it. Maybe Wade Baldwin also. But he's a guy that can easily create shots for himself and for other guys a little bit. So I wouldn't say to cut out too many minutes for him. I think if we keep playing him the same amount as we have, he's going to grow into himself as the season progresses. And I think he's averaging maybe 6-7 points a game right now. I could see that going up to 9.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Going into the season, I said Luke Cornett be our most improved player. I think a lot of people would agree with that at this point. With him sitting out, though, my focus moves to another guy. Matthew Fisher Davis has really completed his game. Last year, he would just stand on the three-point line, shoot threes. Up until the end of the season, wouldn't play much defense, wouldn't really rebound. He gets up for the rebounds. He has that little pump fake mid-range game now. Plays a lot better defense. I like Fisher Davis out on the floor as much as possible.
Defense is the biggest difference in his game, in my opinion. I think he's averaging 1 block a game almost. His arms are just so long. And his defense it's really stood out to me. His offensive game I still think is a little one-dimensional. It's either from the three-point line or a few steps in. You can even tell like when he shoots free throws. For some reason he's not as confident when he moves maybe 6-7 feet in from the three-point line. That said, he's obviously an amazing shooter. His defense has been great. He's been a good player, definitely improved. And what about Roberson? That's a guy that the first game he played at least, unbelievably impressive. Since then, I mean, his defensive presence has obviously been good. He's maybe regressed a little bit, though. What do you think of Roberson so far?
I wouldn't say he's regressed. We need him to play defense. He's a guy that knows his role. His role isn't to get the ball and look to score and expend a lot of energy on the offensive end. His role is to stop one of the other team's best players. So even though Roberson's not really putting up any points, he can still take it inside the lane, sometimes get it to go. I'm not disappointed with him at all. It'd be nice to see him score a little more, but he's just a guy, kind of not a true role player, but he knows his role on this team, and that's on the defensive end.
That's definitely true. And then Riley LaChance, someone whose stats have dipped a little bit, but I think that's just because of more depth on the team. He's averaging right around 9 points per game right now. He's been really consistent, in my opinion, though. There hasn't been any games, I don't think, in which I haven't wanted the ball to be in Riley's hands. There's been games in which you don't want the ball in Damian's hands, or even Fisher Davis's. Riley's been pretty consistent, in my opinion.
It's the only complaint I have is, like, Riley's looked pretty solid at the point. He's much better off the ball, and at the end of the first half of the Dayton game when Baldwin went out with 2 fouls and LaChance was in, that's when we let them back into the game. They had 4 turnovers in a row or something like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that was on him.
And then I guess one last player, obviously, Wade Baldwin. One interesting stat I noticed is his assists are down to only 3 per game. Is there any significance in that?
The way our offense is, like Damian had 6 assists in the Baylor game. It's not like a true point guard drives and passes to other people. It's everybody's all over the place on the floor. So I'd say no, that's just small sample size. He is taking slightly more shots than he used to, even at the end of last year, but no, I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, and I want him to take more shots. Whenever we're on a cold streak, you want the ball in Wade's hands. He can drive to the rim, he can shoot. He's usually the guy that ends those cold streaks.
Yeah, he's the guy with the most fire. Him and Cornette are the two toughest players on the team. With Cornette out, Wade's got to pick up even more of the leadership role in that regard. And these 2 losses were I'd say the Baylor one on the road against a ranked team, you can't get too disappointed with that. The Dayton one, that's disappointing. When the guys and the coaches point to effort, that's something that they have the ability to fix. So that's tough to hear about. And if you look down at the rest of our schedule, we have Wofford at home a week from today. We should win that game. Hopefully we're not just looking forward to at Purdue, because without Cornette, without Cameron Justice, Wofford, they're not a very good team, but if we come out playing badly, that could be a close game. We need to get our confidence back, get a large lead against them.
Yeah, following that, we have a relatively easy one against Western Michigan, followed by the first SEC game against LSU. LSU is a team that was definitely a little overhyped going into the season. Maybe some people are saying that about us now, though. Definitely a statement game against LSU.
Yeah, hopefully we get on track. And then just going back, at Purdue, that's a tough one. Purdue's number 3 in the Ken Palm rankings. They should probably be in the top 10 in the AP poll this week, too. They're 11-0. That's a really good team. They have size up front, too. It would be really nice to have Cornette. Hopefully our shooters are hot in that one. Big games from Fisher Davis and Riley, and Damian holding his own in the paint will be key.
Definitely. And obviously Purdue will be favored in that. I'm not counting us out, though. I know we may not be deserving of a top 25 ranking right now, but I know we are capable of being a top 10 team. We've proven it at times. If we play our game, our shots fall, we can easily upset Purdue, and that would be a huge win. That would by far be our most quality win of the season.
Oh, yeah, that would completely erase the last 2 losses, the Baylor one and the Dayton one, in my mind. They'd still be there on paper, but winning at Purdue would be a great, great win for this team.
Yeah, and after the LSU game, we have a few more SEC games, none of which should be too difficult, although we have at Arkansas and then at South Carolina, 2 road games in a row. And South Carolina is a team that's kind of hard to assess. They've played well so far this season, but at the same time, they haven't played anyone great.
But yeah, looking at their schedule, too, there's a very good chance they're undefeated going into that game. That we go play at South Carolina, their first big game of the season, undefeated. That could be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, and then we have home against Auburn and Alabama, then at Tennessee, and then at Kentucky. You look at that, we have 9 games before Kentucky. The only ones I could see us not being favored in would be Purdue and then possibly South Carolina, possibly LSU. But
I will be favored against LSU. It's at home.
Yeah, definitely. True. So if we win all the games we're favored in and we give South Carolina the benefit of the doubt, we win 7 of the next 9. That's not too bad. That puts us at 13-5 going against Kentucky, and I could see us playing even better than that. Hopefully we do.
I do too. Well, obviously we're underlining the Kentucky game because that's a big game. They're going to be a top 10 team, but that's also the date that we expect Cornette and possibly Cameron Justice to be back. And it's no excuse for losing the games, but Stallings did say that's 2 of the guys in the main 8 rotation that weren't playing. It would be great if they could be back for that game.
Definitely. Obviously, we'll talk a lot about the Kentucky game in a month or so. We're excited for it already. We wanted to get tickets to it. Game literally sold out in a minute. Not even. Couldn't get tickets. But, a lot of good stuff coming ahead. And moving on from college basketball, unless is there anything else you'd like to add?
Not really. I just don't want to write us off. People are starting to write the team off. I don't think that that's fair. Even if we lose to Purdue, we have 4 losses, none of which Dayton one's kind of bad, not really bad. Look at the teams that some of the top teams have been losing to so far this season. If we had 4 losses going into conference, very possible to only lose 3 or 4 in conference. Although that wouldn't put us in a top 3 seed. You could still easily make a 4 or a 5 seed with that. I just want to see us win a big game. That's it. I want to beat Purdue, not for not having the loss on the schedule, but to just have the guys prove to themselves that they can win a game against a team that they might see in the second round in March.
Yeah, actually, to add to that, when you're making your bracket for March Madness, almost every team has, that bad skid. I hope at the end of the season we can look at this game against Dayton, Baylor, and say, all right, that was a 2-game skid in which they did not play well. At the end of the day, though, once you have over 30 games, it's not the end of the world. It's not that big of a deal. If this is the lowest point of the season, that's not too bad.
Yeah, hopefully this is the same thing as that slump we had in the middle of conference play last year, and we can pull ourselves out of it.
Exactly. So moving on, we're going to talk just a little bit about college football. Obviously, tonight, 8 p.m., we have the Heisman selection show between Deshaun Watson, Christian McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry. All three great players, obviously. I've kind of written off Deshaun Watson. His stats just don't line up with what Marcus Mariota or really any of the former Heisman QBs have had in the season. So I just don't see him as too deserving of it. But the two running backs, McCaffrey and Henry, have had record-breaking seasons. I could see, obviously, any three of them winning it, but it's definitely between McCaffrey and Henry for me.
Yeah, how about the Heisman? This year people were saying it's Leonard Fournette's award. We pretty much stopped talking about the Heisman race because it was just going to be handed to him about a month ago. And now he's not even one of the 3 finalists that'll be in New York City. I think it should go to Christian McCaffrey. His yards total is just really, really eye-popping.
Yeah, it's right under 3,500 yards. He already broke Barry Sanders' all-time record, and there's still another game left to be played. That's unbelievable. That said, I don't think any of these three deserve to win the Heisman. I think it should go to Zach Cunningham. What do you think of that?
That's what I said coming into this. I agree. I think Zach Cunningham should win the Heisman. At least he got first team All-SEC.
But yeah, on a serious note, I'm also going with McCaffrey. He has fewer touchdowns, but that's solely because when Stanford gets on the goal line, they put in their goal line running back. He has way more yards. He gets 0.6 to 0.7 more yards per touch. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. Derrick Henry, obviously a great player. I don't think he's as great as some people think, though.
It's just the Alabama. Yeah, I was just going to say that. It's because he's the Alabama running back. Derrick Henry's a good player, don't get me wrong. You put Ralph Webb behind that. Ralph Webb's a very good player. People don't put him in even near the same category as Henry, though. He might be in this discussion. A lot of it is just the system you play in. They're in the red zone so much, and they give him the ball every single play in the red zone. That's why he gets all the touchdowns. A lot of it's just their offensive line and because they're a good team.
Yeah, so we're both leaning towards McCaffrey. In terms of the college football playoff, we have December 31st, 2 big games. We have Oklahoma versus Clemson and Bama versus Michigan State. Who are you taking in those 2 games?
I'm going to be boring and take the 2 favorites, even though they're the 4 seed, Oklahoma over Clemson, and then Alabama over Michigan State.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. I want it to be Oklahoma versus Bama also. I know it's the 2 big-time programs. That would be an exciting championship between those 2 teams. If I have to give one team the edge overall, I would give it to Bama just because their defense is so amazing. But Oklahoma is right with them, in my opinion. You look at Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon. That might be the best running back duo in the entire nation. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Oklahoma, they may be the 4 seed in this, but they're just as likely as Bama to win this all, I think.
Yeah, it should be 2 close games, and then the championship game also. Next year at this time, hopefully we're talking Vandy, Oklahoma, or something like that. It seems like a little bit of a stretch, but you never know. Derek Mason is starting to round out a pretty solid recruiting class. People were a little skeptical at first, but now it seems like Joejuan Williams, the local defensive back, is going to commit, and we might get that kid from Hawaii too.
Yeah, Iowa, or I don't know exactly how it's pronounced.
Yeah, but I watched his highlights. He's a monster. We're really our offensive line from the freshmen, the redshirt freshmen now, and then these kids coming in should be pretty solid.
Yeah, I was originally really low on the recruiting class, but if we bring in those 2 people and the fact that I think a lot of these kids are gems, I mean, not bad at all. Definitely a bright future, not losing much at all. Next year could be a huge improvement. Obviously, we'll talk a lot about that later on in the year and definitely next fall.
We'll have a detailed football preview at some point, and we are looking forward. We're not just basketball and football fans. We love baseball too, and I am really looking forward to doing a baseball preview podcast where we go down the whole roster, predict starting rotation, talk about where we think guys will be in the bullpen. As soon as we get back from winter break, that's something to look out for.
Yeah, that's it's going to be one of the most fun podcasts to do all year. There's so many unknowns with the baseball team, tons of freshmen, tons of people that left the team. But we know we recruit the best players, and every single person on this roster is capable of being an All-American. So it's going to be a lot of fun predicting lineups, pitching rotations, etc.
Oh, this freshman class is ridiculous. Huge class, tons of great arms, players, a lot of infielders, some outfielders too. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, well, I think that's all we have for you today. I hope you all watch the Wofford game. Stay tuned with all Vandy Sports. Make sure to continue following us on Twitter at JT and Zeek or at VU Sports Podcast.
Yeah.
But that's all we have for today. So thank you and anchor down.
Got to get back to studying. Anchor down.